Hi, I'm Marty Demko. It's not often that an author denigrates his own book, let alone, I guess, s- pronounces it about to be dead, maybe not even worthy. But I love to be candid with you, so here's the story. Over the last year or so, and I love to try different genres of writing, I decided to get into flash fiction writing. That is, stories that can be read in 1 to 3 minutes. And I really love the concept. So that people, when they have just a couple minutes, can have a self-contained story with a character that's of some meaning and interesting, just something interesting. I also did care a lot about what I believe is the excessive orthodoxy and political correctness in the world. And as a moderate, I wanted to present a balanced picture of men and women. And so I started writing these short stories. And I wouldn't have included them in the book. The book is called Soloists, short stories of introverts and outsiders facing a dilemma. I wouldn't have included it if I didn't love each one. But just yesterday, I reread all 123 with fresh eyes, and I don't love them anymore. And maybe that's because my wife doesn't like them at all, most of them. My wife, they range from okay to she hates them. Maybe I just have fresh eyes and realize they're not good. So my plan, and I can't swear I'm going to keep to it, is to put this thing to rest. I keep adding to it. When you self-publish on Amazon, you can keep updating it. And I started with 40 stories in the book, then 80, then 93, then 110, and now I just republished it, and it has 123 stories. And but I really think I need to promise myself that I'm not going to write any more of it. That's done. I'm grateful that Quora has named me a business expert and have asked me to provide extended answers to important questions mainly about career. And I've written a dozen. I'm going to write some more of those. But I want to make that the central writing project. Forgive this long introduction, but sometimes they say it's important for an audience to know something about the person. I'm sad about this, but anyway, my way of putting this to bed is I picked out the stories that I liked the best of the 123. There are 11 of them, and I thought I would make this my podcast of the week, my podcast, How to Do Life, for those of you who subscribe to that, or those of you who follow my YouTube channel. Anyway, I'm going to get started. So the first of these stories is called Sam's Last Concert. I have recorded these individually in the past over the last year or so, but here they are together. Sam's Last Concert. In the wings, Sam could hear the concertmaster tuning up the orchestra. Damn, my hand is shaking more than usual. It's a bad Parkinson's day. Plus, it's my last concert. I'm nervous. Glad I decided to play the Grieg Piano Concerto, but with these hands, nothing is easy. Sam had been a concert pianist his whole life. At age 11, he finished fourth in the Midwest Regional Young Artists Competition, and now at age 83, had performed 45 concerts, including one with the Kansas City Symphony. He thought, "True, that was just in the KC Symphony's summer festival, when a lot of the A players were on vacation. But still, somehow I wish my ex-wife were here. How could she have dumped me? I still wish you were here tonight. Do I play it safe? A lot of note mistakes would make the audience think I stayed at it too long, like those star baseball players who'd rather hit 200 than retire. Or do I go for a home run? A chance at a write-up in the Kansas City Star. Roseman finishes with a flourish." The conductor gave Sam a forced smile, and Sam strode on stage. "This is it. Deep breaths, deep breaths. Damn, my hands are shaking more. I'm taking too long. I gotta get out there. Stand up straight. The old men hunch. Stride. Don't shuffle." But Sam could manage only to shuffle on stage. He hung on to the piano with one hand as he bowed his head to the audience. If I tried to bow from the waist, I could fall. And he sat down at the piano. I've had this moment so many times, but this is different. Sam used his old trick of adjusting the seat up and then back down again, not because it needed adjusting, but to buy a little more time to ground himself before the moment of truth. And Sam began, and took every reasonable risk he could, and most of the time he won. Yes, his boldness caused a few note mistakes, but only the ignorant or mean-spirited could criticize his exciting performance. It was inspiring at any age, but for an 83-year-old with advanced Parkinson's, it gives me the chills just to tell you about it. And yes, Sam got not just the usual obligatory extended applause, bestowed as much to protest classical music's dying popularity as to acknowledge the performer, but fervent applause, and then, yes, a standing ovation. Not a charity ovation, a heartfelt one. And Sam, who usually was too shy to really look at the applauding audience, and so would stare at the back wall, soaked in the smiling, standing people. Then he sighed, plodded off stage for what he thought was the last time. Sam shuffled into his dressing room, closed the door, and dropped into a chair. I survived. I didn't embarrass myself, but I can't go to the reception. And that's like a retirement party where everyone tries to make light of it being the beginning of the end. My end. There was a knock on the door. Daddy? His daughter opened the door and gushed, You were amazing! You were really amazing! Come on, they're all waiting for you! Sam knew there was no avoiding it, so he trudged downstairs. When he arrived, the chatter morphed into applause. He thought, No one likes long speeches and nothing ungracious. I should be a good boy. But he couldn't resist saying what he really felt. Honestly, I can't stand the thought that this will be my last performance. And he teared up. A 4-year-old then toddled up to him. Do you want to play in my class? And Sam Roseman went on to play more concerts than he had in his life, in his entire life, in preschools and elementary schools. First just locally, then around the country. He never got paid. Indeed, he had to pay his travel expenses, but he didn't begrudge it. I can't think of a better way to spend my money and my limited time left to teach young kids to love classical music, and that old people aren't necessarily irrelevant. Anyway, that was Sam's last concert, the first of the 11 short stories I'd like to read to you from my book, Soloists. The next one, after I get a little drink of water, is called Sub. After having been let go from my job as a fundraiser for an education nonprofit for, quote, not making my number, I needed a win, and fast. So while looking for another real job, I figured I would substitute teach. There were ads all over for looking for subs. Yeah, I was a little scared. I remember us kids not treating subs so well, but I figured I could handle it, especially if I were prepared with fun activities to supplement whatever the regular teacher left for me. I figured wrong. As I approached the classroom, 2 kids were in the hallway. When they saw me, they turned into the classroom and yelled, Sub! More kids picked up the chant. I had been raised to believe that if you treat people with kindness and respect, it'll be met in kind. So although their doing that scared me a little bit, I mustered a smile and I entered the classroom. Gently, without a word, I motioned the class to settle down. And I said, I'm looking forward to making this a good day for you." Whereupon a student made a mouth fart. I gave a mild schoolmarmy look and continued. "Yes, I'll do the, the schoolmarmy look like this. A little bit like that. Yes, I'll do the lessons your teacher left for me." The kids groaned. "But I've also brought some special things for us to do that we should find fun." And the kid said, "We're going to dance?" They said, "Not quite, but..." And at that point, a kid climbed on the desk and started dancing, or more accurately, twerking. I figured I'd better get firmer, so I said, "Down." The student said, "I'm no dog. You can't talk to me that way." He continued to dance, and I had to do something, so I took his arm and was about to say, "Get down." But before I could, he pushed out his chin and mocked, "I know my rights. You can't touch me. I'll tell the principal and sue you." I didn't know what to do. My face was red, my heart was beating, and embarrassed, scared, and okay, a little angry. I strode to the principal's office and said, I can't do this. I'm leaving." The principal calmly said, "You are the paid professional. You need to be able to control a classroom." I continued out the door and redoubled my effort to find another job as a fundraiser, but this time for a cause other than education. Anyway, that story is called Stub from my book Soloists. Here's the next one. I should let our listeners know. You're listening to a podcast, if you're listening to this on a podcast, of How to Do Life. I need to let my announcer do her thing for just a few moments. I hope you'll stay with me. I have some other stories that I hope are at least marginally worth your time. Thank you for staying with me. This next short story from my book Soloists is called Stars and Stripes Forever. At home or in his car, Michael played Stars and Stripes Forever for hours each day. Some people thought he did it as nostalgia for his army buddies. Others wondered if it was balm for the bad memories from his tour in Afghanistan. Still others thought Michael simply was patriotic. It was none of those. Michael played Stars and Stripes Forever to anesthetize himself from his loneliness. You see, Michael is forbidding at 6'5", 280 pounds, with a tough face. He could be cast as an SS officer who tortures Jews. And his shy and taciturn personality cements people's avoiding him. The only person who ever liked Michael, really liked him, was his dad, who passed away while Michael was in Afghanistan. Michael loved playing catch with his dad to see who could throw harder. When Michael got old enough to throw harder than his dad hugged him. When Michael said school is boring, his dad didn't prod him to be more academic. His dad said, "I understand." But what Michael most missed was that his dad wasn't ashamed to be a Vietnam vet and would play Stars and Stripes Forever all the time on his cassette player while accompanying on the piano, and would invite Michael to march around wearing his Boy Scout uniform with his BB gun. And when Michael's mother, only half joking, mimicked the mother in the movie It's a Wonderful Life, "You'll poke your eye out," Michael's dad would roll his eyes, stick his tongue out at her, and smile. "Michael, march on." And with increased enthusiasm, his dad played, and Michael marched through the house, onto the bed, out to the backyard, and back into the living room. Michael's mom shook her head, but realized this was good, maybe among life's better moments, and she hugged them both. Today, Michael thought, yes, Stars and Stripes Forever. Anyway, that story is Stars and Stripes Forever. Next story from the book Soloists is, my book Soloists, is Turning Down Harvard. At age 6, my parents bought me a Harvard t-shirt. At 10, they took me on a tour there. What I mainly remember was the triple scoop ice cream cone they wouldn't let me have. In high school, my parents advised me, every Ivy League school has a crew team, and few kids are willing to get up early in the morning to row. I managed to dissuade them. Would you get up every morning at 5 to freeze your ass off? But I took as many advanced placement courses as were offered, even though that sacrificed extracurriculars and teenagers' less formal pleasures. I took the SAT 3 times. One of my friends even took up the tuba, explaining, "My college counselor told me that even Harvard's marching band struggles to find tuba players." In April of my senior year, I got the email from Harvard. "Your notification is at your portal." For 2 days, I couldn't make myself look at it, and finally, "We are delighted to..." The message's last sentence was, "We invite you to campus on April 24th for Discovery Day, where you'll meet your fellow admits, tour campus, visit classes, and enjoy a celebratory dinner on us." At Discovery Day, all proceeded as I expected, except for the classes. I thought, useless shit taught badly, and those teachers are no doubt among Harvard's best. After all, they're trying to get us to come here rather than to Yale or wherever. This is what I worked so hard for? This is what my parents are going to spend $300,000 on? The dinner was a buffet, with bar-height tables to encourage meeting and greeting. I told a number of students what I was feeling. For example, even though the Harvard piece of paper is a big deal, it's crazy for smart people to spend yet more time at a student desk, taught esoterica, but boringly. Well schooled in the art of politeness, the students listened respectfully, and one even paraphrased me. "So, you're wondering whether Harvard is the right choice for you?" My typical response, "If Harvard, education's pinnacle, is like this, I'm wondering whether any college is the best use of our time." Each student took the first opportunity to escape to talk with someone who would cause less cognitive dissonance. When I returned home, my parents spurted, "So, how'd you like the mighty Crimson?" I muttered, "Fine," and walked out. And I walked until I had an idea. I was going to start a charter high school. Instead of a curriculum larded with what students didn't care about, my school's curriculum would emphasize relationships, money, choosing a career, plus what individual students wanted to learn. There would be virtual mornings, at which students at home would complete self-paced simulation and video-rich modules taught online by transformational teachers from all over the world. In the afternoon, the students would come to a local community center for extracurriculars. I submitted my charter school application to the school district, which didn't respond for a month, and when it did, it submitted 2 pages of requirements that were impossible to meet. When I told my parents, they resumed the pressure. "Just try Harvard. Otherwise, what are you going to do, work at McDonald's?" I'm not sure what I'm going to do. Anyway, that story is called Turning Down Harvard. The next story from my book Soloists is called Hilda the Hypocrite. In 3rd grade, Hilda volunteered to lead her class's recycling drive. She didn't do it because she cared about the environment. She did it because she liked being in charge of something. She gave a speech about how recycling can save the earth, and kicked off the campaign by ceremoniously emptying her desk's excess papers into the recycling bin, a vivid and public but easy way to show her commitment. That made some kids feel guilty if they threw even a tissue into the garbage can rather than into the recycling bin. Little did they know that at home, because Hilda's apartment house recycling bin was a few steps further than the garbage bin, she would usually just toss her family's recycling into the garbage. In Hilda's high school history class, she gave an oral report on the importance of diversity. She dug up stories of people of color accomplishing great things, but when she became student body vice president, which allowed her to pick 3 student senators, she chose 3 friends of her race and gender. After college, Hilda took a job at an environmental nonprofit. Again, her motive wasn't to help the environment, but so she could tell her friends that she's working for an environmental nonprofit. When she became the work group's project lead, she stressed the importance of teamwork, but in practice, she rarely pulled her weight. Yet when her boss wanted pay raises to be equal for all group members, she argued that she should get more because she was the lead. In a Bible study class, she spoke against abortion. It's tough to be an environmentalist and anti-abortion. Overpopulation is a leading cause of environmental degradation. Besides, she had had an abortion. When teaching Sunday school, Hilda urged her students to turn the other cheek, even when the other person is wrong. Yet even when returning home from teaching Sunday school, Hilda often would give the finger to bad drivers. On Hilda's deathbed, she urged her family to work to support the environment, to help the poor, and fight for the right to life. Tearfully, her family pledged to do so. That story is called Hilda the Hypocrite, from my book, Soloists. The next story is In Tune. I'm 84 years old and thinking about moving to a senior community to take the pressure off my daughter, who looks in on me all the time. Before I go, I've long had a desire to play a little piano concert, not at some fancy place, just in my living room on the little spinet piano that I've used more for decoration than for playing. All I can play are ridiculously old songs like Moonlight Bay, Over There, and Let Me Call You Sweetheart. I practiced for the little concert a fair amount, and then placed a little ad in my neighborhood's newsletter. I suspected that only a few people would show up, but I didn't want to be embarrassed. Then I realized I hadn't had the piano tuned, ever. So I went to the local piano shop, and on the bulletin board there were business cards for maybe 10 piano technicians. Only one was a woman, and let me be honest with you, even at my age I like women. I called her. I was surprised that she was able to come same day. I soon found out why. She had just printed up the business cards, and I would be her very first customer. I figured that for a duffer like me on a piano that's probably worth less than a tuning costs, she'd be fine. Certainly my piano would be her guinea pig. Because she said I'd be her first customer, I figured she was young. But when she walked in the door, she was around my age. She tuned the piano fine, although I'm not sure I could tell the difference if it was tuned well or not. After she finished, she asked if I wanted to try it out. Impish me, I decided to play Let Me Call You Sweetheart. I played a bit and then sang the lyric. Let me call you sweetheart, I'm in love with you. She bowed her head. I don't know if it was embarrassment to reject me or because she hated my horrible singing voice. But I decided to ask her, will you come to my concert? And she nodded. She was the only person who showed up. I didn't mind, and as it turned out, neither did she. Okay, so that story is called In Tune, from my book Soloists. As they say, available on Amazon. Anyway, the next story is called The Box. And again, for those of you just joining me, these are 11 of the stories I particularly like from my book Soloist that as I look at it in toto, I'm not as crazy about as when I first wrote them. So I'm not planning to do much more to promote it or anything, let it die a natural death unless somehow it takes off for reasons I right now cannot imagine. Anyway, this next story is called The Box. Michael just buried his father, literally. He was a ditch digger. As he trudged home, he stopped at the library, yes, to find a novel, but also because he used the library as his bathroom, including a shower. He took off his shirt, rubbed a squirt of soap under his arms, tried to rinse in the sink without getting all wet, and dried with paper towels. At Trader Joe's, he bought a jar of peanut butter, a bag of rice crackers, a bag of celery, a bag of apples, and a miniature rose plant. Michael trudged past the paint store and reached home, which was under the freeway. More precisely, his home was a shady spot that had just a ribbon of sun, and that's where he planted his rose. He settled into his sleeping bag and pictured his father trudging from his apartment in New York weather to the train to his job sewing shoes. And after 10 hours, his father would trudge back and did it till age 82. And today, Michael buried him. One day, as Michael returned from work, he saw a sign near his home. Freeway demolition, 3/12/22 to 3/15/22. Like San Francisco's Central Freeway, which had been torn down to push people to use mass transit and to eliminate freeways in low-income areas, The government was demolishing the freeway that sheltered his nook. On March 12th, nothing happened, nor on the 13th or 14th. But when he returned from work on the 15th, his overpass was gone, and his sleeping bag and few possessions were buried in rubble. What would his father tell him to do? Son, you can't go back to your nook because you'd be exposed to the weather now. But don't go to a shelter. The noise there is so bad you can't sleep, and you may get robbed. And don't sleep in a doorway. Michael agreed, if only because his rose wouldn't get sun there. His father concluded, "You're smart. You'll figure out what to do." Michael did his best thinking while walking, so he padded down the streets. Soon he saw two men unloading a refrigerator from a truck. They removed the box's heavy plastic wrapping, slid the refrigerator out of the box, the corners of which were reinforced with wood, onto a dolly, and wheeled the fridge into the apartment building. When the delivery men came out, Michael asked if he could have the box. They agreed. Michael then shoved the plastic into the box, dragged it back to his nook, dug out his buried possessions, and crawled inside the box. He hated that his home looked ugly and that the cardboard would collapse in the first rain. He got an idea. He strode to the paint store, bought a wide paintbrush and a narrow one, a box-cutting knife, stapler, and 3 cans from the mismatched paint section. Butter yellow for the body, French blue for shutters, quote, and apricot for the trim. He painted the box, stapled the plastic around it, and cut an opening for a window for sunlight and a view of his rose. He imagined his father saying, "I told you you were smart." Anyway, that story is called The Box, from my book Soloists. The next story is called A Career Coach. Ironically, it was a success that made me do it. My client used every tactic I taught him, plus unethical ones like, on his references, listing his girlfriend as his boss, and he got the job. I'm embarrassed that I hadn't previously reflected on what a sleaze I've been, packaging inferior clients so they get the job instead of a more worthy person. Not only does that deprive the person of the job, my efforts thereby saddle the boss, the coworkers, and the customers with a worse employee than they could have gotten. That client woke me, but I'm still a little embarrassed to tell you what I did. After hours, using a phony voice, I left a voicemail at the HR department at the nonprofit that hired him and told the truth about him. I feel good about it, or at least I felt good about doing that, like a Robin Hood stealing from the unworthy to give to the worthy. So I did it every time I had such a client. And all was fine until one day someone knocked at my door. It was a process server. I opened the envelope and a client who got fired because of my voicemail was suing me. I'm guessing the HR person told him that someone spilled the beans and he knew it had to be me. Maybe this career coach needs a new career. Anyway, that's called A Career Coach. The next story, I should let you, if you're listening to this on a podcast, this is How to Do Life. I'm Marty Nemko. I'm going to take just the briefest of breaks so my announcer can do her thing. And I've got a couple more stories. I think only one more, it's a little longer story that's a little odd one that I will read. I hope you'll stay with me. Thank you for staying with me. This is called Hire the Best. Infused with liquid courage, I pulled out the button I had been too scared to wear in public. The button read, "Hire the best." I thought, I'm lonely. If I wear this button, it'll be a scream. Today, most people will hate it, but the rare one might be friend material. So except at work, I wore it everywhere. The usual response from passerbys was silence, looking away, or pursed lips, and eyes steeled forward. But finally, Lily, a Japanese-American woman, said, "I like your button." I said, "Why?" She replied, "Because ultimately, only merit net benefits humankind." I asked her out for coffee and she agreed. I also used the Hire the Best button as bait. I walk leisurely so oncomers have enough time to process what higher the best means. I kill all passerbys who criticize it, like the guy who yelled, "That's elitist, man!" Why do I kill them? I'm not crazy. I want to make a difference. You see, anyone who uses criteria other than merit in hiring makes the world worse. It does hurt the products and services we buy, the leaders we elect, the people who get into top colleges and medical schools, and the researchers who could save our lives, the doctors too. I can't change the world, but I can rid the world of some of these termites of humankind. I rotate where I walk, always on a busy commercial street, so there is foot traffic but no homeowners who, if the cops ask, could remember, let alone describe me. I also rotate the t-shirts, each with a slightly different wording, each in a different inconspicuous color. Rather than have a company print them, I used commonly available press-on letters. I needed 2 sets, and so to avoid suspicion, I bought one each at a place I'd be anonymous, one at a Walmart and one at a Target, each at least 20 miles from each other and from my home, and I paid in cash. The t-shirt hooks them onto my line. My relaxed walk and present expression reels them in a bit. Then I use FBI techniques to get him closer. I momentarily raise my eyebrows, tilt my head, and smile. Those suggest that you're harmless, and indeed that you like the person. The FBI uses those techniques to try to coerce a confession from suspects or to convince a foreign national to spy for the U.S. If those tactics get a person to stop to talk with me, I'll start the conversation with a comment about the weather, or better, I'll praise something they're wearing, or say that their doggie is cute, whatever. I'll continue the pleasantry for a minute or two, but lest I seem too eager to befriend them, I'll then say that I need to leave. I'll feign uncomfortability and murmur, I'd be pleased to chat further, that is, if you'd like. I invite my mark to email or call me. Most of them don't, but enough do to make it worth my while. We agree to meet in a public place like a Starbucks. It takes time to get them to be comfortable enough with me to come on my boat. My cottage sits on an isolated cove, and I dock my boat there for my disposal trips. For my disposal tips to reassure I wear a Hawaiian shirt. I show caring by asking if they had trouble finding the place, showing empathy if they did, and praising them if they didn't. Once I get my mark on board, I offer a drink that's spiked with poison that disables them in minutes. I had tried thallium and compound 1080, both of which are tasteless, odorless, and water-soluble, but both acted a bit too slowly, so I found something else. Lest you use it for a non-meritorious reason, I'm not going to tell you what it is. I take a route out to sea that avoids anyone seeing us. I go out far enough that the body will be impossible to find. When the victim is dead, I put on gloves to avoid any of their DNA staying on me. I dump the body into the ocean, wipe down the boat to eliminate any other DNA, fingerprints, or fabric fibers, put each glove and my clothes into a bag, add a rock so it'll sink, and toss it into the sea alongside the body, or near the body. I put my fingers, or actually I don't, I actually put it into a part of the sea. I'm making the story up as I go along. I toss it in the sea separately so the two aren't put together, and I dry, so that they're not, but anyway, you get it. I put my fingerprints back on the boat so it looks like I'm the only one who's been on board. I put on an identical set of clothes, return home, and take a shower to be sure there are no traces. No one ever finds out. One time, the victim told a friend or relative about that she was planning to go boating with me, and along with other boat owners in the area, a detective interviewed me, and CSI types checked out my boat. But of course, they never found a thing. I've now done it 14 times, and will keep doing it until I die. It's the most pro-social way I can live my life. Of course, I've hidden all this from Lily. Anyway, so that story is called Hire the Best, from my book Soloists. I guess there are, I think, 2 more stories. This one is called Tits Tommy. Tommy was always disliked because he was a know-it-all. He couldn't help it. He was smart and not restrained enough to hide it, so the kids hated him. He tried to compensate by being ever so nice. He was careful not to hurt anyone's feelings. He did all sorts of favors for kids, even though they were rarely reciprocated. Indeed, the nicer Tommy was, the more the kids took him for a patsy. They felt fine about ignoring him, asking him for more favors, and treating him insensitively, even cruelly. For example, as a preteen, he got chubby, and the kids called him Tits Tommy. He responded as his parents taught him, turn the other cheek. Alas, that was seen as a sign of weakness, so the taunts grew into getting beaten up for mock offenses like, "Why are you looking at my girlfriend?" In high school, Tommy decided that the way to attract girls was to be polite, tactful, buy them little presents, and be respectful of sexual reticence. The popular girls saw that as unattractive. The only girl that liked him was Rita, who, because she wasn't attractive, was starving for kindness. Despite seeing again and again that being nice yields less respect, Tommy went through life being Mr. Nice Guy. Perhaps just because he was wired that way, or because he felt it was worth the abuse in exchange for doing what's right. But even Tommy's wife and children took advantage of him. The nicer he was, the more indifferent, indeed more disrespectful they were of him. He tried hard to please them, but increasingly, with ever greater confidence, they treated his wants as irrelevant. So as Tommy aged, he grew more dispirited. "I just don't fit on this earth." Alas, unlike in the movies, he never met anyone who treasured him for his kindness, nor was he rewarded by his employers or society. Tommy was nice even to the doctor who injected him with the euthanasia drug. Perhaps the only time he showed strength was in his will. He left all his assets to charity. Anyway, that story is called Tits Tommy from my book Soloists, and the final story I want to read to you is called My Shield. When I walked down the street, people averted their eyes, understandably. Sternness was etched in my face. They didn't realize I wasn't feeling stern, but rather was always worried about doing the right thing, about not offending. I got that from my father, who would yell at even minor infractions. I wanted a facelift, but could never afford one, so I wrote this note to local plastic surgeons. Dear Dr. Whomever, of course I inserted their actual name. People avoid me because I look mean. A facelift would really help, but I'll never be able to afford it. Partly because of my looks. The best job I've gotten is security guard, and on the side I clean people's backyards. Would you be willing to give me a facelift in exchange for yard work? One of the plastic surgeons agreed to see me. At the appointment, she said that Botox would solve the problem without surgery, and she would do it in exchange for yard work. In more good news, she said that when the Botox wears off, I'll tune you up, also for free. After the Botox, people reacted better to me, but I found myself not wanting to talk more with them. I again was always worried I'd make people angry, so I let the Botox fade, which restored my shield of sternness. Anyway, that story is called My Shield from my book Soloists. I do thank you all for listening or watching. I do welcome your thumbs up, accept your thumbs down. I always look forward to your comments, and especially like it if you hit the share button below. Share this on your social media so that my efforts can have broader impact. And of course, I'm also flattered if you would check out my book Soloists, which has 123 of these stories. The subtitle is short stories of introverts and outsiders facing a dilemma. And again, I do thank you for watching. I am Marty Nemko.